Are you a founder trying to build a successful startup company? Are you looking for a high-level overview of your startup and funding journey? If so, keep watching. I'm Sam Wong, and I've done 5 startups with 3 exits over the past 2 decades. I also wrote a book on startup execution. I'm a startup CEO coach and the instructor for a library of startup training classes. We're going to provide a high-level overview of our startup execution roadmap. We'll also show you how to use our low-level startup blueprint to help you build out each phase of your startup journey. This is our startup execution roadmap. It's a high-level infographic that provides a bird's-eye view of the startup and fundraising journey. Roadmaps are key to navigating unfamiliar territory. They'll help you reduce wandering, avoid misdirection, and build confidently. All these factors are important because the margin of error for most startups is small. Founders use our roadmap to help form and shape plans for their startup. The infographic is built upon the VSEM framework, which is a business planning process that stands for Vision, Strategy, Execution, and Metrics. VSEM is often used by experienced executives to figure out where they need to go and to develop strategies, execution tasks, and metrics that take them there. This infographic focuses on the vision and high-level concepts. Most founders should start by understanding the business journey for their startup, which begins with the parallel tasks of forming your startup and validating your idea. The second phase is validating your model. The key task of this phase is achieving product market fit. Many entrepreneurs tend to conclude that they've reached product market fit before they actually have. The third phase is to establish traction. It's important to have a strong metrics infrastructure to show and prove your traction, which will help convince investors, employees, and partners that your startup has momentum. The fourth phase is to build out your infrastructure, which is all about building the foundation needed to effectively scale the company in phase 5. Companies that have successfully built scale are prime candidates for a nice exit. When you look at the critical success factors for a startup, it's important to start with validation because 70% of all startups fail due to premature scaling. That means companies built too much of their product or spent too much on marketing or ramped up their staffing too quickly before they validated their business model in phase 2. Having this roadmap will help you to execute well, which is an important part of building a fundable startup. You want to build a fundable startup before you try to raise funds on your funding journey. Each round of fundraising should be synchronized with your company's inflection points, as that anchors your funding strategy, which is how you maximize your startup payout. We built this roadmap to illustrate the key phases of a startup's development so founders can assemble the right team to execute the right tasks at the right time. This team should deploy solid, methodical, and defensible plans to build and grow a healthy startup. In my experience, too many entrepreneurs are focused on isolated concepts and tasks like MVP and pitch decks and lose sight of the big picture. This roadmap can guide your journey to build your startup the right way. One thing that we rarely see is an interface similar to Google Maps where there's a continuous and logical flow from high level down to low level. If you don't see the connection from the detail to the vision, it's hard to have confidence that the turn-by-turn guidance is correct. Guidance to founders should have a continuous connection from the high-level 30,000-foot view and the more detailed 10,000, 5,000, and 1,000-foot views. Without that connection, it's difficult to provide context and assure that your step-by-step implementation aligns with the high-level plans. That's why we also have a low-level blueprint that accompanies the high-level roadmap earlier. Where the roadmap is more for planners, the blueprint is more for builders. The blueprint depicts the strategy, execution, and metrics layer of the journey. In essence, it drills down from the roadmap to provide more detail for someone who has to build this out. The blueprint includes numerous low-level tasks that builders need to consider. It also includes a number of insights to expand on the concepts that may not be familiar to many entrepreneurs. It also depicts several tools that we provide to help simplify and accelerate the building process. These tools are included with classes that we sell on our fundablestartups.com website. So, why did we build these tools? Well, the reality is that startups are hard and existing resources aren't helping enough startups succeed. The sad consensus from experts is that 90% of startups fail. And if you add in those that dramatically miss expectations, that number grows to 95%. There have been many studies about why so many startups fail. Regardless of the reason behind the failures, the data shows that running a startup is hard. Basically, resources to support startups are often unstructured. We see a ton of startups tips and tricks, but we're not sure that these random hacks really grow any capabilities. A lot of the advice or training tends to be consumed reactively, which rarely ensures success or speed. And finally, we also see a lot of unactionable direction. It's simple and easy to say, perform an appendectomy or raise a seed round of funds, but these are things most people don't know how to do. If all you do is focus on what to do and why, then it's unactionable. Most people need help with how to do a task, which is where something like a medical textbook would be helpful for a surgeon in training. We believe that startup enablement needs to be structured. Random bits of scattershot knowledge can be informative, but it is rarely transformative. Enablement also needs to be proactive. A lot of startup coaching involves an advisor showing up to a monthly meeting and spontaneously answering questions asked by the management team. The best coaches have a game plan and proactively help the founders execute that plan. Startup enablement also needs to be actionable and simple. This is particularly important because many startup founders are doing many things for the first time. It may be their first time raising funds or their first time managing a product development team. Actionable templates help founders succeed. To reinforce this point, Eric Ries, author of the best-selling book, The Lean Startup, states clearly that startup success can be engineered by following the right processes. That's good news because that means this process can be taught. We're not fans of random bits of startup folklore dispensed by the village shaman. I'm an engineer and I prefer a machine because then you have a system where it's repeatable. We believe in following a structured, methodical process to solve hard problems. In the same way that there's a process to learn calculus, starting with arithmetic, algebra, geometry, and then trigonometry, which all precede calculus, there should be a structured pathway for founders to build a healthy startup. But how do people usually deliver startup knowledge and training? The most common method is by providing a checklist. Checklists are good because a thorough checklist will tell you all the important things you need to know. Unfortunately, most checklists don't tell you anything about when you need to do them or in what order. They also tend to lack implementation detail. In contrast, processes are better because they don't just tell you what to do, but also the order to do them. But most processes also lack implementation details and context. We believe that processes combined with tools provide the best experience because they don't just tell you what to do and when to do it, but also provide you with guides and templates to help you get it done. So, what does it take to build a good learning system? We've already been talking about the importance of a structured journey to fundability. Our startup execution roadmap clearly illustrates the startup and funding journeys ahead. And our startup execution blueprint provides low-level resources and training content that helps founders build components along this journey. Disorganized, scattershot training is ineffective. You also have to look at the builder of the system. What operational startup experience does the person have? Have they seen both success and failure in the startup space? Many people who've only seen one successful exit may not have developed the hindsight that can serve as your 2020 foresight. Implementing systems to address any hard problems usually requires lots of detail. Hard problems are complex and usually aren't adequately addressed in short 10 or 15-minute videos. I've seen some people peddle business advice in 1-minute soundbites. The challenge is these candy bar vending machine meals aren't very nutritious and won't help you run a marathon. Another key aspect is visual content. Building visual training takes 10 times longer, but studies show visual aids increase learning by 400%. Minimalistic learning aids or text-heavy slides that read like the dictionary aren't very effective. That slide in yellow is a rendition of an actual slide from another startup training class. Finally, having ready-to-use color-by-numbers templates and tools help founders take action. Most training stops with just informing the audience, but training paired with actionable tools is transformative. So, to summarize, we built the Startup Execution Roadmap to illustrate the typical journey from formation to exit. We paired it with the Startup Execution Blueprint to help founders actually take action and install the components needed to build a successful startup. There's a link in the description where you can download both the roadmap and the blueprint at no cost. If this was helpful, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell to be notified when we release new content. When you do this, YouTube promotes our videos to others, which allows us to spend less time on our marketing and more time creating startup content for you. We hope this video helps you build a very healthy, fundable startup.